Hi, I'm Scott the Miniature Maniac, and in this video I share with you the painters that make me moister than an oyster. What up, Mini family? I had a good break from YouTube in January watching lots of really bad 80s fantasy movies.
I could just eat you alive.
Bones and everything.
But now I'm back, better than ever. Once a year, I share with you guys my personal favorite painters, so I figured let's start 2023 out with my new lineup. This list is in no particular order, and a reminder that I am not claiming these people are the best painters in the world, just my personal favorites right now. Coming in at number 1 is Will Hahn, or as my podcast co-host calls him, Willy Hanna. I'm sorry, Will. Will is an American display painter, which is significant because the vast majority of super high quality miniature painters you'll find on the internet often are located somewhere in Europe. This could be for a variety of reasons, not limited to, but including how Americans seem to be more focused on the gaming aspect and less on the art aspect of the hobby. How creatives are able to get some form of assisted living in other countries, allowing them to focus on their art while still being able to provide for themselves, and maybe the general decline of art-focused programs in schools across America. There is way more that goes into it, and this is likely a topic for a different video, so let's get back to the video that we're actually making. I first discovered Will when I found his witch horn piece online. The combination of the striking concept developed by Brom and the matching energy of Will's paint job was a winning combo. From the inky black backdrop that helps the red robes of the character jump off the screen at you to how he places his highlights, Will has a masterful understanding of sacrificing reality for the sake of readability. He could have highlighted the witch's left shoulder as equally bright as her right, but it would have been more of the same for the viewer to take in. Instead, you get a much more dramatic piece by favoring one side of the model with light and shadow. Speaking of light and shadow, can we talk about his rendition of Amuneth Karnak? This painter was putting on an absolute clinic for harsh shadows from direct sunlight, an artful choice that matches the design of the character. She clearly is from some kind of Egyptian descent, so placing her outside on a sunny day checks out in my smooth brain. Check out that harsher drop shadow on the pillar from the sword. You can feel the sun. At the risk of sounding very artsy, this piece is transportive in a way. All the creative choices Will made on this model, from the paint job to basing, the pillar is one of his additions, just make the sculpt sing that much more, which is really the responsibility of a miniature painter and furthermore a box art paint job, which this one is. I actually had the pleasure of talking to Will for an extended period of time at the Las Vegas Open, a convention that I recently attended, and I held his witch horn piece in my hand, and I can safely say that the real thing is just as good as the photos, which doesn't happen very often. You can find a nice interview of Will on Vince Venturilla's YouTube channel, all things linked down below. Before moving on to the next artist, let's hear a brief word from our sponsor. Puppets War is a third-party bit seller and an STL maker. On their Patreon and Tribes, you can get access to their monthly STLs. This month, they're featuring the Striker Engineer and Cannon Platform, Goblin Field Artillery, and 2 types of giant space bugs. Along with their STLs, as a new patron of Puppets War, you get access to the welcome pack that includes the Scoundrels Warband, a collection of characterful miniatures ready for proxying in 40K, games of Stargrave, your own solo campaign in Space Station Zero, or anything you can think up. You also get a coupon code for 40% off single STLs on their My Mini Factory web store and access to their Discord when signing up on Patreon. If 3D printable files aren't your thing, they also have a website filled to the brim with third-party replacement bits available in both resin and STL format for sci-fi and fantasy use. I used their vampire heads for my Blood Knights back in the day when I was converting up a couple squads. If you're a patron of Puppets War, you also get a 15% discount on their web store items as well. Lastly, while the models available on their Tribes and Patreon can be used for any sci-fi games, they themselves develop a game called Exofront. This fast-paced game features alternating activations, and with the faction called Space Bugs, how can it not be a winner? The rules are freely available to try out. You can find all these things linked down in the description below. Thanks to Puppet War for sponsoring this video. Now back to my favorite painters. Next up on our list is a Polish painter whose name is Kristoff, which I undoubtedly pronounced wrong. I'm trying, EU, I swear. Kristoff was the very first painter that I subscribed to on Patreon to figure out what he was doing, because to me, the end result seems like black magic. I found out that the real world equivalent of black magic is just a lot of hard work. Go figure. Sucks to suck, I was hoping for some kind of wizardry. Kristoff is the kind of mini painter that will stop at nothing for a high finish result. I find myself being afraid of that kind of painting because it can feel like at times you defeat the purpose of a hobby, which to me is having fun. I respect the hell out of people who are able to press into that feeling and come out the other side with a result like this. Kristoff's library of finished works is vast, but let's check out a few of my favorites. Shocker, the first one is a vampire. I don't want to hear it, okay? Subject matter aside, the entire paint job feels so cohesive. Every color comes together like a member of the same family. I credit that to the blue shadow present in every part of this model that unifies the paint job, but also cools off the warmth of the red hair, the hues of the copper, the natural warmth of the skin, and the warm bone in her headdress. That blue isn't alone either because it's present in her medieval choker and the iris of her eyes. He's very thoughtful in his placement of colors, and it's very clear. Next up, check out this Harley Quinn model. You think that model includes sculpted fishnet stockings? Think again, peasant. This is what I'm talking about. If I did that, I'd go insane and quit. I sometimes feel like how good of a mini painter you are isn't determined by your level of skill entirely, but also determined by how patient you are. And Kristoff has plenty of both skill and patience to spare. One last thing I love about Kristoff's painting is his skin has this pleasant brushstroke noise that reminds me a lot of Dave Colwell, a painter we explored in a previous edition of My Favorite Painters. We as hobbyists are often afraid of brushstrokes and texture, but here they are, as plain as day. And it looks incredible. Next up on my list is another American painter I discovered very recently, and that's Moses Yao. While Moses is an incredible painter and I enjoy many aspects of his painting, like his dark, non-metallic metal, something I have yet to really tackle, the elephant in the room here is definitely his skin tones, particularly that of his female subjects. I mean, just look at this! What the fuck? This particular paint job is a work in progress, so it's not even something as silky smooth as some of his more finished pieces. Yet, something about this piece just screams, "You'll never be this good." I think one thing among many things that Moses does extremely well is sell us on the reflectivity of skin. In many of his paint jobs, he has very small and bright highlights that match the volume of what he's painting in a very effective and realistic way. Notice how this bright little highlight on the cheek of this model isn't on top of the cheek, but more toward the viewer, helping us understand that this skin is a little glossy. He also has lots of pleasant warm hues all over the skin, like in between the bridge of the nose and the end of the nose, an idea we explored when looking at how females apply makeup in a past video. Did I imply you could only paint females? Check out this texture-heavy version of Connor, a bust sculpted by Ivan Mata Mielgo. I think Trent Dennison summed up everyone's feelings in the comment section. Relax, bro. Moses is capable of incorporating a very painterly style in all of his work, similar to Mark Mesclance. It's not something that I've seen implemented so well very often, so whenever I do, it's always very impressive. Time for a slight curveball, but we're heading to Germany for Michael, or as he's known on Instagram, Mike_Mutiny. Mike's paint jobs are so goddamn clean that you could eat off of them. It's like comic book style self-shading and heavy metal painting style had a beautiful, clean baby. The kind of baby you could eat off of. Is that too much? One of my personal favorites is his figure called the Spiritual Apprentice. This model is so simple and beautiful, and the paint job just matches that energy very well. Whereas Moses Yao is discovering an end result from many brushstrokes, Mike is very intentional about the placement of every line and dot on his models. This is really the kind of painting that elevates a sculpt. If I were casually scrolling through the models on North Star Figs where you find this sculpt, I might have totally dismissed this model. But with a fresh coat of paint like Mike was able to accomplish, it just transforms the model entirely. This isn't unique to this particular model either. I think a lot of the models that Mike paints wouldn't look so attractive in bare plastic or pewter, but after giving them love and attention, they come out absolute winners. I love how Mike pores over each war game scale figure he paints one at a time. I also like to paint models one at a time without much consideration for time spent, so it's nice to see someone else doing the same thing. You might recognize some of Mike's Turn Up 28 pieces from the recent Kickstarter for the gaming system, The Forlorn Hope. Last on the list is Jamie Dagonica Escribano. I think part of the reason why Americans say Vallejo instead of Vallejo is because we'd rather sound confidently wrong than try to pronounce it the right way, partially wrong, and get made fun of. There's a good chance that I took a me problem and prescribed it to all Americans. Oh, my quesadilla is done. Jamie is a fantastic painter, like everyone else in this video, but one thing I want to focus on is his work on the CMON game Marvel United. He painted these figures with bold layers of color and no blending, and it inspired the hell out of me. I think this is something that we should all strive to be able to do, and let me explain why. In a previous video, I explored how understanding the shape and final size of your highlights enables you to paint more quickly, because you're not trying to figure it out while painting, so there are less needless brushstrokes and thus less wasted time. This is exactly what Jamie is doing here. He knows how large each layer size needs to be and how bright it needs to be to sell the end result as shiny or not, as dark blue or light blue, etc. Make no mistake, however, this kind of painting requires a great deal of confidence because the average miniature painter doesn't think this way. The average painter is much more exploratory, trying to find the answer on the model while painting. This kind of painting requires the ability to know what you're going for pretty concretely before even starting, and that's what makes it so amazing. It's so far removed from what I am comfortable with that it seems like magic to me. I actually have a couple of Marvel United characters that I'm planning a video on to try to replicate this style to further expand on this idea, because it's pretty complicated and I may have explained it poorly. The thing that's even more amazing is that he's painting in this incredibly unique way while also selling very complex painting ideas like OSL or harsh drop shadows. There's a lot of confidence going on in these paint jobs because to paint with no blending means there's no skill obscuring your understanding of light and shadow. If you don't understand it and attempt this, it will look bad and nothing will hide it. But in Jamie's case, there's nothing to hide. That'll be it for this video, guys. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to check out more videos like this, I'll have them linked at the end of this video. I got a whole bunch of videos planned for 2023 that I can't wait to show you, like an interview with a full-time box artist, new narrative painting shorts, and of course, painting more minis. Don't forget to check out this video's sponsor, Puppets War, and if you like the channel and want to support it, there are many ways for you to do that, namely a Patreon campaign with a bunch of fun rewards, like a Discord server where you and I can hang out any day of the week and chat about your miniature painting projects, or what kind of painters that you look up to. Other ways to support the channel are buying my model, the Duchess, and the digital course that goes along with her, teaching you how to paint the model step by step. You can also buy my hobby equipment that I recommend, my merch, and more. All things linked down in the description below. Subscribe or die! And most importantly, don't forget to paint more minis!